So, Kinobody, also known as Greg O'Gallagher, had a recent post on his Instagram with regards to his leg training. He kind of got roasted by the internet a little bit. However, I don't completely disagree with his thoughts, so I thought I would talk about that here today.
Here's what happened when I stopped doing heavy squats and deadlifts.
So normally when I see people who are avoiding squats and deadlifts, it is in the context of them avoiding things that are difficult, things that are hard work. They don't want to be uncomfortable in the gym. They want to just focus on the easy exercises, the upper body training, the fluff and pump, etc. So more often than not, when I hear I don't squat or deadlift, I hear I'm being a lazy sack of shit. However, I think in this case, it's slightly different.
Most of the fitness industry tells you that squats and deadlifts are the king of exercises.
So one marketing strategy that you kind of have to look out for is the most of the fitness industry, or it's this anti-mainstream type of marketing. However, in this case, I actually kind of agree. When I first started lifting, I heard this all the time, and I actually believed it myself. Squats and deadlifts, you got a barbell squat, you got a barbell deadlift, if you do anything else, you're a complete idiot. I would actually genuinely see people leg pressing and be like, pussy. I'm not proud of it, but that was the general mentality at the time. See someone on the Smith machine, you're like, noob, beginner. He's not working his stabilizers. What is he going to do with his stabilizers? Actually, there was a comment on Kinobody's post saying that if Arnold squatted, I'm going to squat. If Arnold deadlifted, I'm going to deadlift. Well, first of all, you shouldn't do something just because someone else does it. Second of all, even more ironically, Arnold was known for Smith machine squatting later in his career. He's a little bit of a taller guy, and so this allowed him to better target the quads, and this has been my experiences as well. And he also didn't deadlift very much later in his career, probably because he was a very strong deadlifter. I think he deadlifted near 700 pounds earlier in his career, but it just didn't make sense to do that later in his career from a stimulus to fatigue perspective or a risk to reward perspective either. Another comment talked about the testosterone boost from heavy squats and deadlifts, which is a thing, but it's not like you can't get that from other movements. And it's not like your body says, oh, he's doing a barbell squat, we better, the balls are like, what's going on? No, you can get that same or similar boost from other movements. Plus, it's transient anyway, so it's not going to have any kind of meaningful effect on body composition, muscle growth, fat loss, or anything like that.
If you want to build muscle and look good. And I actually had the opposite experience. You see, if you train very intensely and you're doing a lot of squats and deadlifts, that eats up a lot of your intensity and muscle growth.
So I agree, but I also disagree here. So it eats up a lot of your intensity and muscle growth. Eats up a lot of your intensity, I kind of agree. You do have a limited amount of energy that you can put forth in the gym, and if you're spending a whole bunch of that on heavy squats and heavy deadlifts, it just limits the amount that you can do on other things. And this is why powerlifters often have fatigue management in place. RPE, RAR, it came from powerlifting for a reason. These are very taxing lifts. It might take a long time to warm up as well. That is part of the reason why I haven't barbell back squatted in about 2 months. It's just not worth it. You get 45 minutes into your session, you've done 2 working sets. You could do other things with the same amount of effort and just be getting more in terms of stimulus. I think safety can be an issue if you have an injury history with them, and there's nothing wrong with dumping the barbell back squat at all. Same thing with deadlifts. I haven't deadlifted from the floor unless it was starting a set of RDLs in 4 months, 5 months, something like that. I don't miss it. It hasn't impacted my physique at all. If anything, I've continued to improve. And so if you don't want to deadlift from the floor, you don't need to. There's no particular or special benefit. Any benefit in terms of muscularity or performance that you can get with a deadlift, you can get at least the same benefit from other movements. Now, where I disagree is where he implies that you have a limited amount of muscle growth, and if you squat and you deadlift, that growth is just going to go towards the quads, towards the adductors, towards the glutes, etc. I hard disagree here. Muscle growth is more of a local phenomenon than a systemic one. It's not like you're a sculptor who has a limited amount of clay And oh, if you squat, the clay is no longer going to go to your delts because it's going to go to your quads instead. That's not really how things work. It's more like your muscle gets stimulated and it's going to grow if it has that stimulus in place. And just because you have stimulus somewhere else, that doesn't mean it's going to grow less. And the reason you might see some powerlifters or some Olympic weightlifters have a certain type of physique, it's not because of the training they're doing, it's because of the training they're not doing. So an Olympic weightlifter, they might have, pretty small biceps because they want to get in that clean position and they don't want massive biceps. Plus, it's not really specific to anything that they're doing. They are focusing more on developing the skill of doing Olympic weightlifting, obviously, but then also in terms of muscularity, it's going to be knee extension and hip extension. Those are going to be the big ones because that is what actually helps their performance. So they're not focused on aesthetics, and so they don't focus on aesthetics, right? But it's not like they are losing muscle growth because of the training that they're doing. By the way, this video is sponsored by Boostcamp. I'm happy to announce that they are the long-term sponsor of the channel. And this is not through a lack of other sponsors. They are the one and only sponsor because they are legit. They have tons of awesome programs. You can track your progress in the app as well. So they have programs from Peter Cacciatarian, Alberto Nunez, Alexander Bromley. It's basically a who's who of people that I look up to in the industry. And I have seen exactly 0 programs on there that I hate. Yeah, none. Not even a single one. Whereas I go to some other websites and I'm looking through the programs and I'm like, oh God, no. Everything on here is legit, well thought out, well constructed, and makes sense. And so definitely check them out. I'm honored to be working with a platform that puts out such good information.
A lot of that size is going to your thighs and your butt. And it's a lot harder to build elite level strength.
So I would agree for pull-ups and dips. If you are pulling a lot more mass in the form of a bigger ass, then yes, you're going to have to pass on having a fast progress for your pull-ups and dips at least. However, on a bench press, on an overhead press, on most training that you're going to be doing for the upper body, it's not like having a big squat or a big deadlift is going to be a hindrance. People who squat and deadlift and they're powerlifters, do they have a terrible bench? No. They have a good bench. They have a great bench in a lot of cases because they train the bench. So just because you're doing something hard, that doesn't mean your upper body stuff is going to suffer in some way. For example, if you're doing a bench-only meet, how much better is your bench going to be than if you did a full squat bench deadlift meet? A few percent? Like a few pounds? 20 pounds? I don't know. It's not going to be a huge amount. It's not going to be night and day. It's not like you're going to get a 50% higher bench press just because you're skipping out on squats and deads. And even then, a lot of guys who are training for bench only, they still do squats and deadlifts.
And as well, doing a lot of squats and deadlifts jacked up my appetite. So I was always hungry.
So actually, I would agree here. And I think that if your goal is to maintain quite a lean physique, this is where you have to weigh and measure and manage those trade-offs. If doing heavy squats and heavy deadlifts really does increase your appetite a lot, and it makes trying to maintain that physique a living nightmare, then yeah, you might want to cut out that part of the training, especially if big legs are not really your goal. And you have to ask, why do these increase your appetite? Well, it's because they're stimulating a huge amount of muscle mass. Squats in particular, you're stimulating the quads a lot, huge muscle group. Adductors, huge muscle group. Well, not on Greg, but for most people, a huge muscle group with a lot of growth potential. Glutes, again, massive. Plus your spinal erectors, a little bit of calves, a little bit of traps. Basically everything to keep your torso rigid and upright. So yeah, you're working a lot of muscle mass, which is a lot of protein synthesis after the workout, which increases your demand for energy, which increases your appetite because your body's like, we could use some of that energy. And you can ignore that, but you probably won't grow from that. And so if you ignore that appetite increase and you're not going to grow anyway, why give your body that stimulus in the first place? So I get it. I understand it. My experiences overlap. I just don't want to have fucking small or sharp legs. I want to look like a monster.
I was kind of stuck at 14% body fat.
He says stuck at 14% body fat like it's the worst thing in the world, but keep in mind that is at the roughly 99th percentile of leanness for the overall population. You will look great at 14%. You will feel great at 14%. It's a great place to be. Right now, I am under 14% body fat, but I spend most of the year 14% body fat or above because that is what is best for muscular growth. And realistically, he would probably see better overall progress if he allowed his body fat percentage to go up a little bit, but it's just sort of part of his brand. And perhaps part of the reason why Greg has struggled to make progress, and that's not really shade, he's an advanced natural lifter, and I do think he is natural, so progress is always going to be slow, but he's not really giving himself the best possible opportunity to fulfill his potential. And that's fine, but he should also be honest with himself and realize that he's probably holding himself back by always trying to get leaner, suppress the appetite, eat less, intermittent fasting, etc. Like that is going to be not great for your progress as a natural lifter.
So when I switched to just doing Bulgarian split squats, Romanian deadlifts, pistol squats.
So I love Bulgarian split squats. I also hate them, sort of a duality thing there. True of most people. Most people hate them to some degree, but they're an amazing exercise and you should absolutely include them in your program. Romanian deadlifts, another fantastic one of my favorites, just a killer of a movement. Brutal, but super effective. Pistol squash, I'm not huge on. I don't do them very often or ever. Maybe on a slant board they're okay, or maybe with a weight where you can counterbalance, but I find they're too much mobility, too much balance, etc., and I don't think they're great for overall size. They're a nice sort of party trick. Reddit seems to be in love with them, but as a mass builder, not a huge fan. And right now, my lower body training, everything is RDLs, good mornings, lying hamstring curls, adductor machine, which Greg actually, you might benefit from. Your adductors are like the lagging point that give you the weird sort of skinny leg look. Your quads are pretty damn good. Hamstrings are awesome, but the adductors are they might be worth bringing up. I know they can maybe sometimes chafe together if they're super overdeveloped, but I don't think he's quite at that point. Leg press, Smith machine hack squats, Bulgarian split squats. You know, just those 7 movements are all I am doing at the moment. No barbell deadlifts from the ground, no sumo deadlifts, no stiff-legged deadlifts, no deficit deadlifts. These are all great movements, but not anything that I'm doing. No front squats at the moment, no back squats at the moment, certainly no low bar back squats at the moment. And I seem to be doing all right.
And focusing on the upper body, getting it really strong, my physique sharpened up, and I still had very sharp legs.
I think ultimately it kind of comes down to goals. So a lot of people on the internet will have their own goals, and they will project those goals onto you. And as a content creator, you know, I actually admire Greg in a way, because he's actually always in the comment section, even though more often than not, he's getting roasted. And that takes balls. That takes, you know, it can be tough as a content creator. It really can. So, you know, if nothing else, he has my respect for that. And, you know, if his goals are not to have big legs, that's totally fine. If you want to skip leg day entirely, it's not something I suggest, but ultimately that's still your choice. It's a bad choice, but, you know, it's your choice to make. Remember, there's no exercises that you absolutely need to have in your program. There are always alternatives if you have injuries or if you don't want that increase in hunger or some other factor, or maybe it just doesn't agree with your body. There is always something that you can change it out for. And for more information on that kind of stuff, you can check out my books. They will help you a lot in your fitness journey. They show you exactly how to get the most out of your training. Thank you so much for everyone who has gotten the books. It means a lot to me, and the feedback has been great as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.